The Green Bay Packers announced that former team president and Hall of Famer Bob Harlan has died at the age of 89. For many fans outside Wisconsin, Harlan's name may not immediately stand out the way a quarterback or head coach does. But inside the history of the Packers organization, Bob Harlan is considered one of the most important figures the franchise has ever had. Because long before the team returned to championship contention in the 1990s, the Packers were struggling. Through much of the 1970s and 1980s, Green Bay had fallen far from the dominance it enjoyed under legendary coach Vince Lombardi. The franchise had losing seasons, coaching instability, a small market identity that many believed made competing with larger cities increasingly difficult. That's the environment Bob Harlan stepped into when he became team president in 1989. Harlan wasn't a flashy figure. He was an administrator, a builder, someone who believed the Packers could return to prominence if the organization made the right decisions at the top. One of his earliest and most important moves was restructuring how the team operated. Instead of the board of directors making football decisions, Harlan centralized authority under a general manager. That decision led to one of the most consequential hires in franchise history. Ron Wolf. Wolf brought a new philosophy to Green Bay, one centered around aggressive talent acquisition and modern roster building. And one of Wolf's biggest moves came in 1992, a trade for a young quarterback from the Atlanta Falcons. His name was Brett Favre. Favre would go on to become the face of the Packers for more than a decade. Under Harlan's leadership structure, the team also hired head coach Mike Holmgren. Together, Wolf, Holmgren, and Favre transformed the franchise. Green Bay became a consistent playoff contender. The offense exploded, the defense grew stronger, and by the mid 1990s, the Packers were back where their history suggested they belonged. In 1997, Green Bay won Super Bowl XD6, defeating the New England Patriots. It was the franchise's first championship since the Lombardi era. For Packers fans, that victory symbolized more than just a trophy. It represented the revival of a historic franchise. And Bob Harlan was the architect behind the scenes who made that revival possible. But Harlan's impact extended beyond the football field. During his tenure, Lambeau Field underwent major renovations and modernization, ensuring that the historic stadium could remain competitive with newer NFL venues while preserving its identity. That balance mattered because the Packers are unique in professional sports. They are publicly owned. They represent a small city competing in a league dominated by major metropolitan markets. Maintaining financial stability while staying competitive required careful leadership. Harlan provided that. Under his presidency, the Packers became one of the most stable and respected organizations in the NFL. He remained team president until 2007, guiding the franchise through nearly 2 decades of transformation. By the time he stepped down, Green Bay had become a model organization, competitive, financially stable, deeply connected to its community. Many fans associate the Packers' modern era with players like Brett Favre or later quarterbacks like Aaron Rodgers. But the foundation that allowed those eras to exist was built by leadership decisions made years earlier. And many of those decisions trace directly back to Bob Harlan. In 2017, Harlan was inducted into the Packers Hall of Fame, recognition of his enormous influence on the franchise's history. His legacy is not measured in touchdown passes or tackles. It's measured in structure, in vision, in creating the conditions that allowed the Packers to thrive again. When fans walk into Lambeau Field today and see a franchise that remains one of the NFL's most iconic and stable organizations, they're seeing the long-term effects of decisions made decades ago, decisions that reshaped the team's future. And at the center of many of those decisions was Bob Harlan. His passing marks the loss of one of the quiet architects behind one of football's most enduring franchises. But the organization he helped rebuild continues to carry that legacy forward every season.